everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules, especially on a Thursday, to come for this really important conference held by Ms. Heide Cheuk. So please give us a warm welcome. I know some people actually are familiar with Ms. Heide, and so she is the founder of Lumina Minds. And what she does is she also provides parenting workshops and mindfulness coaching, and one of her biggest passions is providing parents with the language and the tools and the strategies to nurture positive forms of communication and relationships with their own parents, with their own children. So wanted to welcome you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And yeah, if you have any questions afterwards as well, she'll be here to answer anything that you have.
Thank you. Is this working? Can you guys hear? Okay. So thanks, guys. My name is Heidi, and tonight I'm going to be talking about mindfulness and parenting. Does anybody, just a show of hands, does anybody have any experience with mindfulness before? Great. A few people in the crowd. I assume all of us are parents. And just a show of hands, who has kids in kindergarten? Grade 1 to grade 3, and grade 3 to grade 6, and maybe teenagers, older siblings? No. What? So really good. We have a big range here from kindergarten all the way to grade 6. What I'm going to be talking about tonight actually applies to all age groups, even yourself as adults, your own relationships with your spouse, your own parents, not just with your kids. And it's all about modeling that to the children. So before we start and get into the meat of the discussion, I'm gonna invite everybody just for a couple of minutes to sit with me. We'll do a really short mindfulness practice. And I'll guide you through it. It's gonna only be a few minutes, so if you're not used to it, that's totally okay. And then when we arrive, then we'll start the discussion. Okay, so. Yeah. Okay, so I invite everyone just to sit in your chair. You can put your phones away. I encourage everybody to put their phones away, actually, because it helps us with focusing and just being present. You can put your bag on the side or on the ground. You can, if you don't know where to put your hands, you can put your hands on your thighs. And just sit in a way that's very supportive for your back. Your neck is straight but not stiff, and you can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And I'm gonna ring the bell, and when I ring the bell, I'm gonna invite you to hear the sound and stay with the sound as long as you can, okay? During this moment, I invite you to take a deep breath and just really noticing the breath going in and out, and naturally the rhythm of your breath. You don't need to force your breathing, just allowing your body to breathe very naturally. And notice whether there are any thoughts coming up. Did you have a busy day today? What was the commute like coming to this talk? What are your feelings right now? And just noticing your thoughts without changing anything. There's no need to change or control anything at this moment. If you find yourself wandering, if you find your mind getting distracted, just kindly and gently bringing your mind back to the present moment. Some people find it helpful to use their breath as an anchor, or sounds. Do you hear the aircon? Or do you feel the touch of your feet on the ground? just trying your best to stay in this present moment and focusing on being here. I'm going to invite you to think of 3 values, 3 very important things that you would like to instill in your children. Think of these 3 things in your mind. You may notice that perhaps there are too many things that you want to instill in your children, and that's okay. And in a moment, I will also invite you to think of how you model these 3 attributes that you've chosen. How do you model these 3 things at home to your kids? Remember, be kind and do not judge yourself. There are no thoughts that are wrong. The exercise is simply just to notice what's going on in your mind and what your thoughts are. And before we end this practice, I would like you to think of one thing that you are very good at as a parent. Something that you are proud of yourself as a parent. And when you know what that thing is, I would like you to put your hand on your heart, place your hand on your heart, and give yourself some gratitude. Say thank you to yourself for doing that one thing that you are so proud of as a parent. And before we end the practice, I will ring the bell one more time. Focus on your breath. And when the sound is done, you can open your eyes. Just wait 1 second. A show of hands, did anybody find that difficult or nice? Did it feel good? Okay, good. Some people struggle when it's their first time and they're not used to it because it takes a lot of concentration. So, today's discussion, we're going to be talking a little bit about what motivates us, human being and children. There are going to be 3 elements of how to cultivate a healthy well-being. What happens to us when we're stressed and what happens to our brains physiologically. What actually is mindfulness? Because there are so many misconceptions. And we're going to practice a little bit together, and I'll end with some communication tools. So just a little bit about me and who I am. I actually have 3 young children. My husband is sitting at the back over there. He came to just be a part of the talk. It's not my first time doing a talk, so this is a little bit of a repeat for him, but it's nice that he's here. By trade, I'm actually a lawyer. I've been practicing for more than 10 years, but can you guys hear? Is it okay? Okay. But through my passion and just after having kids, I started getting really passionate about mental health and children and parents and what cultivates healthy minds, really. Because when we have a healthy mind, our children have a healthy mind, and therefore the world will become a healthier place. As a part of my work, I teach parents and children mindfulness. I also work with schools. And at the moment, I'm pursuing a master's in counseling at Hong Kong University as well, besides having 3 kids. So I am not a perfect parent, despite you seeing all of this, right? Like I'm just like everybody else. I have triggers. I have my ups and downs. Practicing mindfulness doesn't mean you're going to be at peace every minute of the day. Before we had kids, I mean, even when I had my daughter, Callie, she's 8. She's entering grade 3 next year. She's actually going to be coming to Dalton next year. And I had a really stressful job. And so I was bringing stress home. I didn't really know what tools to use. I had a toolbox, but the toolbox were tools from my parents. And a lot of those tools may not be tools that are relevant today. They weren't tools that I was really happy with as a child. So I needed to learn new stuff. And so through learning a lot with Miles and us being really open-minded to what worked and what didn't work for us as kids, that really helped us pave our way. So 8 years onwards, I'm here now. And, our toddlers are amazing. Our kids are amazing because they teach us so much in so many ways. Think about how you go home, you're stressed, you're frustrated. You actually show them your worst sides, but they still love you. You are still their favorite person. How amazing is that, right? So, but that actually might end when we get to teenage years. So I think that's why you're here, right? So those beautiful, endless, unconditional love will only continue, I think, up until maybe early preteens, and then the relationship will start changing. So definitely, it's never too late, and this is the point of the talk. The point of the talk is I'm gonna show you how our brains actually work and what we can do to change it, even for us, even for adults. And this is a really cool graph because it shows that you may know a lot, but actually it's only 20%. What you know in your insight is only 20%. 2,000 years ago, Aristotle said, what we learn to do, we learn by doing. So maybe you know a lot of math, but if you're not practicing that every day and actually using it in your brain, just like a language, it will go away, or you can't retain it. So it's the same with absolutely everything we do and our kids do, including things like how we communicate with our children. So think about if you're very used to talking a certain way with your kid, you're building that neural pathway in your head. So that picture right there are 2 paths. Every time you do something, in your brain, you're actually cultivating a path and you're paving it. So imagine you're going on a hike and there's a path that loads of people walk versus a path that not a lot of people walk. Which path are you going to take? So every time you choose to speak to your kids with kindness or choose to react a certain way, that path in your brain will become more and more fortified. And the other path, that might be the old unhealthy habit, will become less and less less and less prevalent. So therefore, your brain actually won't go into that habit anymore. This is why making a new habit, creating a new habit, actually takes about 66 days. So if you can continue to practice, the new path will show up, and you literally are changing your brain. And when you change your brain, you change your kid's brain. And mindfulness is a way of doing that. So mindfulness is kind of like a gym workout for your brain. So what we did just now, it was about 5 to 7 minutes just now. We were training your brain to focus and concentrate. And that's why when I work with kids, we do certain activities to cultivate that as well. We cultivate resilience, cultivate concentration skills, cultivate kindness. And I want to talk about 2 key facts about kids and parents. Number 1, even the best parents in the world can have very challenging kids. I don't want you to ever think, with all the parents I work with, I always tell them that. Don't ever think that how your child behaves is a reflection of whether you are a good or a bad parent. So parents, you can judge yourself less. Like be less guilty, because we carry that a lot every day. It's like, oh, I feel bad I haven't done this. I feel bad I'm not there for my child. We're all trying our absolute best. And the reason why I have a picture of the toolbox here is because we're trying our best with the tools that we have. So like my own parents, for example, I came from quite an authoritative parenting environment. My parents probably went through a lot of trauma, so they would resort to hitting and yelling. And so I grew up with that myself, and it wasn't very happy. It was not pretty. But I think for them, that was the tools that they had, because their parents did that to them. And they didn't know how to learn, or they didn't have time to learn new things. So we can choose what tools we use, right? If you reflect on what's in your toolbox, and this is a part of mindfulness, reflecting on what's going on in you, how a certain situation makes you feel. Maybe your child crying makes you really, really upset. I've actually had somebody tell me that when their child cries, they find themselves feeling extremely angry and they don't know why. And it's a dad, and he feels like he has to punch the wall or just like yell, and he doesn't know why. So these are the critical moments where reflection and mindfulness will help you understand, oh, actually, this is how I'm feeling at this moment. Why do I feel that way? Instead of judging, I shouldn't feel that way. Judging is not going to help, but being curious and thinking, okay, I actually feel this way. I wonder why, and really thinking about it and reflecting will help with changing those old patterns. The second important fact is that absolutely all children want to do well if they can. The key here is if they can. And they all want to. We all want to do well. It's a part of our human desire to be accepted, to be loved. And a part of that means doing well, right? Because that's what's accepted of us. That's what's expected of us from our society. So, but the part of if they can is really critical here, because, for example, when a child is bad, or when a child struggles with a puzzle or struggles with a math question, they're not bad at math. Maybe they're just lacking some skills and some strategies to tackle that question, to tackle that puzzle. And as parents and as teachers, our role is to figure out what's lacking. What is the skill that's lacking, requiring them to do well in this given task, right? So, for example, if it's your first time skiing, you're not going to go on a black diamond hill. You're going to go on the baby hill until you get the right skills, and then you're going to go on the bigger hills. But it's the same with kids with any given task, including things like sitting still at a dinner table. That requires concentration, requires focus, including things like speaking politely to an adult. That requires communication skills. It doesn't mean your child is rude. Maybe that kid just has some skills that are lacking in that developmental area. So as a parent and as an educator, we have the role of observing and noticing, oh, what skills do we need right now for this task, and how can we coach them, guide them, and teach them without any judgment. And that's really key. Don't judge them, because they need us. They just need someone to guide them. And they're trying their best. So remember, if they can do it, they will do it. And the key question really is, how can we cultivate a healthy mind for ourselves, our children, and a healthy world? And again, I'm showing the picture again because this has a lot to do with our brains. our brains are constantly changing up until even when we're super old. Like, old people can learn new skills, right? And there's no end to how much we can learn, same as our kids. And their brain circuits change in accordance to how we communicate with them. So their brain circuits of kindness, resilience, compassion will depend on how we communicate those things with them. Are we communicating that? How is our body language? How do we respond to their needs? All of those things contribute to how their brains are developing and which path is going to be fortified. And let's dive a little bit deeper into positive psychology. Has anybody seen the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yeah, so people are familiar with this? Yeah, this is really a great model to remind us of the basic needs of humans and what really motivates us. So for those who are not familiar with this, Abraham Maslow is a scientist, and in the 1940s, he studied successful exemplary people like Einstein and Roosevelt, and came up with a theory of 5 levels of needs that humans need to fulfill to reach their highest and fullest potential. And the most basic one is level 1, right? Physiological need. And actually in their rest and sleep is really, really important, parents. Like sleep, we really underestimate the power of sleep. It's extremely important. And same as water, food, warmth, right? So like my son gets extremely angry when he's hungry. It took me a while to realize that I need to pick him up from school with a big bag of snacks. And that avoided a lot of trauma. And level 2, safety needs. So when level 1 is fulfilled, we naturally go to level 2 and we seek level 2 needs. And that requires physical safety, financial safety for adults, but actually most importantly for everyone, kids and adults, emotional safety. Anybody in the crowd wants to share what they think emotional safety might be? Because it's a big term. Could be anything. Don't be scared.
Sense of belonging.
Yes, sense of belonging, exactly. And to feel loved, right? To feel like, I'll give an example. So on Monday, I was teaching a class of primary school kids, and that topic, the theme of Monday was you can feel feelings. And one of the kids, just very smart, and she goes, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I said, yeah, I guess I know what you mean, but let me ask you this. Has anybody told you you cannot feel a certain feeling? And then they all raised their hand. And I said, give me some examples. And so they all shouted things like, my mommy says, I can't cry because I'm a boy. Or things like, crying is stupid, crying doesn't do anything for you. Crying is a waste of time. I'm not allowed to be angry. Not saying these to make you guys feel bad. I've said these things as well. Okay, so I'm sure some of you might have said these things in the crowd, and don't feel bad. But this is the basic of emotional safety, right? When you have a feeling, you would want your spouse or your best friend to accept you. Same as your kid, right? You're calling your best friend, I had a really bad day. You don't want your friend to be like, that doesn't sound too bad, right? Same with your kid. They're gonna want that validation, even if whatever they're saying, their story might sound really silly and not important to you. You can just be like, interesting, tell me more, right? So level 2. And then it goes naturally to level 3, which is exactly belonging and love needs. And in this area, humans have a natural desire to belong to a group. And once we feel that we naturally really belong in the group with all unconditional acceptance, that's where level 4 and 5 comes in. Level 4 is where the motivation to do well really comes. Your kid, when they feel level 1, 2, and 3, they'll reach level 4, and that's where they're feeling like, I am really good at this, I want to do well, I'm going to be very motivated to perform. That's where they're going to seek prestige, seek a sense of recognition from their peers, from their teachers, from their family. They're going to seek attention. They're going to also, in level 4 is where you cultivate a sense of self-worth. This is where the individual will believe in themselves. I actually am very competent. I have abilities and I can do it. This is where they cultivate confidence. And when they reach level 4 and that's all good, then self-actualization is level 5. And that's the part where somebody actually goes to their full potential and seek for peak experiences. I would say most extremely successful people are hovering between level 4 and 5. And this is what motivates us, if you believe in this theory. But there's another theory that actually supports this. This is a triangle of well-being, came up with by Dr. Dan Siegel. In the last 30 years, he's been researching human experience and what cultivates a healthy mind, healthy well-being. And for him, in his theory, the mind and the brain and the relationships all work together. But the most important aspect of this is relationships. When you have very, very good relationships at home, with your friends, your mind and your brain is gonna be good. If you have relationships, that cultivates and builds a path for the rest of your life. You feel supported. So this is actually the same as what we saw in level 3. So there's a lot of correlation that tells us, and research and science tells us that relationships, healthy relationships throughout our lives are extremely important. And they shape the function and structure of our children's brains for optimal development. But what really happens to our brain when we're really stressed? Does anybody recognize these characters? So, you might have a really good day or had a really good sleep. You wake up, take your kid to school, and you're like, today is going to be a great day. You're going to look like Mr. Rogers over there. Then you work, come home, you've had a long day, maybe a couple of bad phone calls throughout the day, some bad news. Your kid's not listening to you at dinner time. Repeat yourself, 10 times. It's shower time, it's dinner time. Come on, get dressed. What about your homework, right? By bedtime, you're starting to look a little bit like, castaway character here, right? So who's had days like that before? I've had, right? I think we've all, and we're not proud of it. And that's okay. It's normal. We have all had days like that. But what's actually happening to our brains? So imagine there are 2 major regions in your brain called prefrontal cortex and amygdala. Imagine these regions as 2 roads like that photo we had just now. The amygdala is at the back. It's a part of your limbic system. It's super small. It's an almond shape. You've had it since you were a caveman. And it helps us. Actually, it's a great tool to help us survive, because it's helped us survive. The human species survive so many things. And this is where, when we're stressed, when we feel danger, when we feel scared, like there's a fire, we know exactly what to do. Grab our kids and run, right? The prefrontal cortex is there to help us solve problems, to know how to communicate properly, to make logical decisions, impulse control. But what's actually happening when we're really stressed is this. So when your amygdala is activated, the prefrontal cortex actually turns off and it goes like this. So this is a model that I use to teach kids, and a lot of parents have also found it really helpful to teach their own kids at home, or even as a tool to show their kids where they're at. So for example, this is your brain, this is the amygdala, and this is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is behind your forehead. I'm going to invite everybody to do this, actually. Do this with me. Okay? The thumb is the amygdala. So a healthy brain looks like this. But at any moment when I'm very triggered and I'm starting to feel angry, we start to flip our lid. And when you're really triggered, it flips. What happens is that your prefrontal cortex no longer works. You cannot make logical decisions. you start yelling, or maybe, fuming. Maybe don't yell, but you walk away. You can't do anything to solve the problem at the moment because there's too much feelings going on. So I tell my kids, where is your brain? Where is my brain? Sometimes I tell them, I'm like, mommy is about to flip. I'm right here. Please let's just go to bed. Please help me. Right? So you can tell them that too. I'm right here right now. Or I flip my lid, I need to go and take a deep breath. Okay, I need to go and wash my face. And then come back. Some parents have asked, can I just walk away? I said, don't do that. Because when you walk away, they're confused, they don't know what's going on. So you can just tell them, I'm really frustrated right now because I've had a long day and this situation is very frustrating for me. I need to go take a 5-minute break. I'm gonna go and wash my face, I'll be back, okay? Or if your spouse is very understanding, you have an auntie, tell your spouse or your auntie to come and take over. I've done that to Miles many times. We help each other that way. I'm about to flip, please take over. So you lessen the damage. And why is this important? Why is this tool important? Because this is actually a great mindfulness technique. Literally at that moment, recognizing where you're at, where your brain is at, is a mindfulness technique. You are reflecting, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling frustrated. I don't like what I'm seeing. This is hurting me. I need to go. And then you're taking care of yourself. And you're also modeling to your children that they can do that, right? Instead of getting angry and punching somebody, you're modeling to them that actually I'm really angry, I need to take a break. Wouldn't you be proud if you saw your kid do that, right? So this is exactly why it's really important to practice. It's important to reflect and verbalize what's going on. So you model that. How does mindfulness actually help our brains? So there are thousands of studies being done now because it's kind of the new big thing. And after 8 weeks of daily practice, 13 minutes a day, they've done a lot of MRI scans on people's brains and what looks different. The amygdala got a lot smaller, and the prefrontal cortex actually expanded and looked bigger and more engaged. So you are physiologically changing your brain by practicing. So you can see improvements in memory, emotional regulation, cognition, self-awareness, and even overall mood. And why is the prefrontal cortex so important? Because these are all the things that prefrontal cortex helps us do. It's a very important part of the brain. And there's this case, actually, Dr. Dan Siegel, he saw a patient. He saw a mother who experienced a very severe car crash and had quite major, severe brain damage, and it was all in the prefrontal cortex. And the patient was the mother, but the daughter was going in to see the mom and the daughter to Dr. Dan Siegel. He's a psychiatrist out in USC in California. And he was talking about how, because this brain region is so important, that mother lost a lot of it, and the daughter no longer recognized her. She was unable to have empathy. She couldn't actually understand what her daughter was feeling anymore. She couldn't verbalize what she was feeling. So this area of the brain is really a major part of our brain and how we function. And the fact that practicing mindfulness helps strengthens the neural fibers that are exactly in this region is a great news for us, because it means that as a human species, we have tools that we can help ourselves to become healthier in our minds, our brains, and then therefore also help our younger generation. So a secure child and parent relationship requires all of this, all of these 10 things. And as a parent, you can shape your child's brain by practicing this. And you guys might know this already, but do you know when a child's brain, the prefrontal cortex in particular, is fully developed? When do you guys think? Anybody? 25, you guys know. So if your teenagers are making some stupid decisions, are they stupid or just because their brain isn't fully developed? right? This is what I remind parents this a lot because we forget, right? We have a lot of expectations for our kids, but we forget that their brains are still developing. And there's a reason why they're acting the way they act, right? So when it's underdeveloped, they don't share, they don't like sharing, they're immature, lots of impulse issues, making poor decisions, right? Tempers, meltdowns. For younger kids, tantrum screaming, throwing things, crying randomly at random things. Teens, what does it look like for teenagers? Poor decision making, not able to decipher what is safe and what isn't safe. That's a big one, right? So like drugs, alcohol, those are really big ones. And so how do we prevent that, right? By having a very close parent and child relationship. In January, SEMP published an article about student suicide, attempted suicide last year. They surveyed about 300,000 students. And these are the figures. It's actually quite astounding and very scary. And the study, the recommendation, one of the key recommendations of the study is actually improving relationships within schools, improving teacher and peer relationship with the students. And so again, we're looking at relationships, stronger, positive relationships as an aid, as a help, as a prevention to mental health issues. And so how can we help our kids develop healthy and successful minds and habits? Well, the first thing is we need to work on our traumas as adults, our triggers, and what stresses us. You need to know what are your buttons, your hot red buttons. When you know your triggers, then you can tame it. When you understand your triggers, then you know how to manage it. Second, making our kids feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. There isn't enough time in this talk to expand on that. I talk about this in my course because there's a lot that goes in there. But to summarize it, it's really showing empathy to your child, accepting and allowing them to feel their emotions. Some parent ask me, is that permissive parenting? Is that allowing them to misbehave? It's not permissive parenting. Allowing your child to feel angry because they don't agree with a decision doesn't mean that you're allowing the poor behavior. So I'll give a very concrete example. We have an anti-sugar rule at home. We have some sugar guidelines. And Callie, my eldest, she wants a piece of cookie. And my decision is no, because we need to follow the guidelines. But she's angry at me. And my response is, it's okay for you to feel angry because you don't agree with my decision. Me as the adult is here to make sure you're healthy, that you grow into a healthy child, a healthy person, and have healthy eating habits. But you are allowed to feel angry. But you also are not allowed to hit someone if you're angry. So she's allowed to feel what she feels, but if she starts exuding certain behavior like hitting and throwing, that's where I can draw the line. But she's still allowed to feel what she feels. So this is where the difference is. It's not permissive parenting, but it's allowing without any judgment. And just understanding, yeah, I get it. You don't agree with me. I don't always agree with what my parents taught me as well. And I'm not always happy with their decisions, but it's okay. You're going to grow stronger and it's going to be okay. You're not going to die if you don't have a cookie, right? And teaching problem-solving skills, patience and courage. Some parents find it difficult even though they know all of this, maybe because it's a new skill. So being very patient with yourself is also very important because it's new. New skills, new communication tools, these are new habits and they take time to build, take time to cultivate. And most importantly, modeling. So why do I have a picture of some oranges here? When I squeeze an orange, I get orange juice. And when I squeeze you, what comes out of you? The concept is you cannot give what you don't have. So if you didn't grow up in a household full of kindness, maybe understanding, that might not be in your toolbox. So that's why the first step is to really look within to see what's inside and cultivating those skills that might be lacking. And that's okay, without any judgment. Let's get into what actually is mindfulness. There are some myths about mindfulness. First of all, it's not religious. There are lots of religion who actually has mindfulness practices. It's existed for thousands of years, but it's not a religious thing. It's not affiliated to any religion. Mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind. What it actually is about is noticing what's inside your mind. So it's actually taking a magnifying glass or a flashlight and shining in your thoughts, on your thoughts, and noticing, oh, that's actually what I'm thinking. So it's not about, oh, I can't think. Because if I tell you right now to not think about a blue dolphin, you're probably all thinking about a blue dolphin, right? Are you all thinking about a blue dolphin? So if you're telling your mind to empty, 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 you're gonna get really frustrated because it's not gonna work. That's not what the mind does. The mind's job is to think, think, think. But you don't have to believe everything that your mind thinks of. Not everything that comes out of your mind is true, is a fact. It's not the same thing as relaxing because everyone feels stress. Stress is a part of life. It's a part of our children's lives. So teaching kids mindfulness isn't teaching them how to relax neither. It's teaching them that it's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to worry before you have an exam. It's teaching us and them how to accept that, okay, right now I'm worried. What can I do to calm myself down? And it's not a quick fix. It's not easy. It takes practitioners years to actually really have a solid practice. I mean, I myself have been practicing on and off probably like a decade, but really, really practicing on and off like 3 to 4 years. And I still get triggers. I still get stress. But my self-awareness level is probably a lot higher compared to someone who doesn't practice. So I'm able to, at moments of stress, notice, okay, I'm actually really triggered right now. I'm going to remove myself compared to someone who doesn't practice. So it's also not only cultivated by meditation. But what actually is it? It's paying attention to the present moment without any judgment. And you can practice this with your children. But how do we do it? Loads of ways. You can do it loads of ways. Meditation and breathing is the formal way. Informal day-to-day, talking and listening. Who looks on their phone a lot when their kids are talking to them? A raise of hand. I do it. Yeah. Right? So that's not mindful listening and talking. Mindful listening and talking is really paying attention to that person at that moment when you are in that conversation and really listening and feeling what they're saying. Washing dishes. The founder of Amazon, he talks about Jeff Bezos. He talks about washing dishes as his daily meditation, mindfulness activity. Taking walks. Who likes to take walks? Yeah, because naturally it makes us feel better. And there's a reason for it, because it is a mindfulness activity. Cooking, right? People love cooking. Making coffee and tea. Listening to a song. There are so many ways to practice, but the most important is practicing with these attitudes. These are the 7 major attitudes of mindfulness. Non-judging. Humans love judging. We're born with, do you like this food? Do you not like this color, right? Everything we have an opinion. Did you do well on your test? You didn't do well on your test? Did you get promoted in your job? We're just so used to critiquing all the time, and it's just a part of society, and we can't escape it. But we can practice having a bit less of it at home, because when you judge less, you actually see more. In the expert's eyes, there are very few opportunities, but in the beginner's eyes, it's limitless. So when you judge, you don't see opportunities in front of you. Patience. Beginner's mind, it's the same as judging, what I said just now. Trusting that things will change, right? You don't need to control everything all the time. Non-striving is an interesting one. Non-striving doesn't mean I'm just gonna sit back and do nothing. Non-striving means I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna do the work, I'm going to put my best effort in. But what the result is, I'm not going to think about right now. It just means that. But you're still showing up and you're still doing the work. You're still putting your best effort in, right? So I tell my daughter this a lot because she gets quite anxious about, she goes to a school right now that has a lot of tests. So she gets quite anxious about it. So we just have a saying, just show up, do the test, you studied for it, you made a lot of effort. Whatever the result, just let it go. Letting go, the last one, accepting. Because your grade at that moment is not a predictor of your future, right? It just shows you what it is right now. But it also doesn't mean you're a bad student. Some people might not do well on a test. Maybe some people do better at writing essays. So again, we're looking at what skills are lacking, right? I don't think she's a bad student. I know that she just gets nervous when she has to do something under a time limit. So what are the research and benefits? There are loads. Like I've just picked a few, but resilience, emotional regulation, academic performance for elementary school students. Teenagers, lower depression and anxiety, improve academic attainment. Again, in students in college, less depression, higher tolerance, improved patience. There are just so many studies, and it's continued, it's ongoing even for cancer patients. And so there's loads of studies that support this practice, and a lot of schools now are picking it up, and even the government in the UK, Westminster, they practice there. So I'm gonna practice with you guys a little bit before we wrap up the talk. And what we're gonna do is some fun breathing and moving that you guys can do at home with your kids. So I'm gonna invite everybody to just stand up. And we're gonna do some Spider-Man breaths. You know, Spider-Man goes like this. This is, give me your Spider-Man hands. So we're gonna breathe in, and then we're gonna shoot when we exhale. Breathe in. One more time. So you can do this at home. Anybody like Spider-Man? Spider-Man breathing. Next, we're gonna do crocodile breath. Crocodile mouth. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. And the last one is butterfly, where we're gonna go like this. We're gonna breathe in and exhale. Really open up. Breathe in, exhale, and breathe in and exhale. Thank you. Sit back down. You can do that at home with your kids when they feel like they need a little bit of movement. They've been sitting a lot, you know, maybe just a long day after school just to freshen up a bit. And for the adults, there's something called the pause muscle in 90 seconds. And this is a really, really cool tool. Within 90 seconds, you can actually increase your emotional resilience. And there are 3 steps. In 90 seconds, you identify the emotion, label it, and you observe what's going on in your body. And you use this when you're feeling really uncomfortable and when you're feeling very stressed at any moment. And the result is that the fact that you're identifying your emotion, you actually calm your nervous system down. And it's 90 seconds, but it's only up to 90 seconds. And this is actually what's happening in your brain. And this was proven by a Harvard scientist, a neurologist. So he made a study about this. Any residual feelings that we have, say you're really angry, it actually only lasts up to 90 seconds. And anything that's beyond that is actually yourself repeating the thought that's making you angry and continuing going down that path. So at that moment, you actually pause and say, I'm feeling upset right now. You labeled it, right? You identified and labeled it. And then you can close your eyes and just feel what is going on, where is it in my body? That actually pauses you continually ruminating, continually looping the angry thought. And so I'm actually gonna ask everybody to close their eyes. And I'm gonna imagine you guys, I'm gonna come up with some scenarios that makes you feel upset. I'm going to bring some discomfort to you, but I want you to try and practice this. Okay, the first one. Imagine you're a teenager. Go back to your teen days. You're happily coming home from a long day of school. You just went to sports practice. You had a great day. And you come home, you throw your bag down on the floor, your stuff is all over the living room. You rush into your room and you pick up the phone and you call your best friend. You call your best friend because you actually have a project due tomorrow, and your best friend and you're partners. And you guys are talking about what to do with the project and how to wrap it up tonight. Your mom actually comes home and sees all the stuff lying on the ground and gets extremely upset with you. Goes into the room, gives you an extremely upset face. You see her furrowed brows, and then yells super loud, "Get off the phone. I already told you, no more phone calls until you've cleaned up the stuff in the living room. You do this all the time." Okay, I'm gonna ask you to identify what's going on. Identify the feeling, label it, and observe how that might have made you feel. Okay, next scenario. Now you are the parent, and you're home after a long day. You've prepared dinner, and you've asked your child 3 times to come to the dinner table. But your child is super engrossed in playing the iPad game, which you have already said they were not allowed to play with. After 3 times of asking your child to come to the dinner table, your child ignores you. How do you feel? What is the impulse here? Label it, identify it, and observe what's going on. Okay, last scenario. Stay with me. Now, this is an issue with your spouse. Your spouse took the car keys and didn't put it back where it should be. And the school calls home and tells you your child is very sick and you need to come immediately to pick your child up and take your child to the hospital. You can't find the car keys anywhere. How do you feel? Observe it, label, and identify. What is the impulse here? You might want to blame or call somebody and yell at them. But do you really have to? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I'm going to invite some volunteers in the crowd. Answer any one of these questions. Anybody? How did it feel when the parent was yelling at you? Confusing. Yeah. Did it motivate you to want to pick up your stuff? No, not motivating. What about the car keys? Did that annoy anybody? No, you guys are very patient. I had a parent that was really angry, actually. In that story, I'm the forgetful one. So, Miles is very understanding. I lose things all the time. But did you guys find it easy to label and identify the things that came up in the body? So this is a very simple tool you can use in the moment to pause. And this is a quote from a very nice book called Positive Discipline. Where did we ever get the idea that in order to make children do better, first we have to make them feel worse? Sometimes we really do that, right? And it's no fault of ours because that's how we learned from our childhood how to communicate. But there are new tools, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So there are a lot of tools, but I can't go through all of them today. I'm just going to go through some of them that I think might be very useful. And the first and most important one is, again, becoming aware. If you're not aware of where your brain is at, you don't know what tool to use. So that's the first step. Then we're going to talk about child-led bonding time. This is actually one of the most powerful tool to use actually at any age, in any relationship. 10 to 20 minutes a day, say you're a super busy parent, you have no time for your kids. Science tells us that you actually only need 10 to 20 minutes a day to really create that strong bond with your kids. And during this time, what do? Okay, you don't make any demands. You actually let your kid lead you. If they want to roll around in the floor, roll around on the floor with them. They want to play the piano with them. If you have older kids that are really into reading, maybe you can read the same book so you can talk about the characters, right? Maybe a parent asked me, what if their kid only likes to play video games? It's not about you, it's about the game. So get into the game. Be like, what's that character? Oh, that's really cool. Just get the conversation going. They have a favorite movie. Maybe you don't like the movie. Doesn't matter. Watch the movie and ask them questions. There's no judgment here, no criticism. Be mindful of your urge to comment. Parents love commenting things like, that's not very cool. This is silly, right? No, that structure, that Lego it's gonna fall down. You need something better. Let me fix it. Don't do that. Just ask questions. Oh, it looks like it might fall down. What do you think might help here? So this is also the moment to be observing your child's face, their eyes. They're growing every day. Every day you are a parent of a new kid. So notice their body language, their facial expression, their tone of voice. Try to find something you haven't noticed before. Because body language, facial expressions are all ways for you to learn about your kid and how they're communicating with you. And just enjoy, just encourage them, tell them, this is level 4, esteem. Tell them how great their ideas are. Tell them how skillful they are. This is giving them the recognition and appreciation. So they are at level 4 and level 3, right? Okay, next tool, the friend filter. Every time you feel like saying something brash, imagine your kid is your friend's kid. Would you say the same thing if it wasn't your kid, but it was your friend's or your neighbor's child? How do you say it in a nice way? Seriously, it's a great filter. Because if you think friend filter, I'm about to yell, take a deep breath. Okay, how can I say this in another way? No yelling policy. This is very hard. Especially, I think, in an Asian culture, people speak very loud. So sometimes when we speak, it sounds like we're yelling, but actually we're not. Or we're speaking from another room. So talking distance zone. If you're not in the same room, you're yelling. And when you yell, they get accustomed to the yelling and they start to ignore you. So if you need to get a message across like it's dinner time, go into the same room as them, tap on their shoulder and whisper in their ear. If they're on the iPad, that will get their attention immediately. Just tap on the shoulder. Hi, it's dinner time. Hi, I need you to help. I need you to come now. They will put it down and come. It's very, very effective. One of the most effective ways of communicating for immediate attention, but it does require us getting off of our butts and walking to another room. Right? So being a little bit less lazy here. And I love this quote from Rumi: raise your words, not voice. It is rain that grows flowers and not thunder. It's a beautiful quote. And something that's very useful. Reframe our labels, judgments, and criticism. What does that mean? And why? When you criticize and judge your children, they don't stop loving you, they actually stop loving themselves. It's a very powerful statement, so read it again. They stop loving themselves. Why? Why is that? That's because the words you use to judge, label, and criticize them becomes their inner voice. Right? So if you call them messy, bossy, they believe it. You're gonna say, I'm a messy and a bossy person. So how can we change that? We can use other words, actually. Like this. You might have a very shy child. They're not shy, they just take their time to get to know something and someone. So we don't have to keep on telling them you're shy, because they might actually think I'm a shy person. My daughter is very rigid, okay? She gets quite upset when markers are not in their rainbow color. Her things, nobody can touch her things. She used to freak out if we make, her bed has been made and the toys are not exactly the way it is. But we've changed that word to, wow, you're really organized. And it encourages her. She's like, I'm a very organized person. Yes, you are a very organized person. So when my son, who is a little bit more creative, messy, creative, comes around and uses her markers, I tell him, Callie is very organized. I know you're very creative with the way that you like to put your things, but please respect her organized way of doing her markers. So if you want to use her markers, please put it back the way she likes it. Right? Because if I start saying to Forrest, you're messy, my daughter will call him that too. So restlessness, that's a big one for a lot of kids, feeling restless. They're just really active kids. Sensitive and emotional. A lot of adults would say, don't be so sensitive. Some people call other adults that. Maybe you've called your spouse that. You're so sensitive. God, you don't have to take it so personal. I've said that to Miles. You take it so personally. But actually, they're very empathetic. So this is a great page for really turning those words into something positive. They may mean the same, similar stuff, but it's a positive word. And so you want your kids to use these for themselves so that they're in level 4, right? They believe that I'm a capable person. And then the last tool that I'm going to leave everybody with is called sitting with your child on the bench, on the feelings bench. So that picture shows our left brain and our right brain. The picture is actually flipped. Okay, so your right brain is where your emotions are, your creativity is. This is where we feel a lot of things. The left brain, if you've heard of people who are very left brain focused, they love solving problems. They might be a mathematician. They love being in science, for example. Lawyers. I'm being in law, have been a very left brain focused person as well. No emotions, just the law, right? So I was really scared having kids because I thought I wouldn't deal with people who are irrational. I didn't know how to deal with that for a long time. But what I found out is that actually when somebody is feeling a lot in their right brain, something is going on that side of the brain. And as humans, when we look at each other, we mirror each other. So sometimes when you see a friend or your spouse walks in and they're in a really bad mood, but you've had a good day, the fact that you've seen them in a really bad mood kind of puts you in a bad mood randomly. Has anybody experienced that? They get really affected by people around them, right? It's the same. So if your kid is not regulated at that moment, you need to actually connect with the right side first and validate them. So I'll give an example. Your child comes home and they've been having a really bad day because they were bullied that day in school. And they tell you, my best friend, do you want to play with me today, and found new friends. A typical parent, very left brain adult, might be like, well, just go find a new friend. Loads of other kids in the class, right? Well, how about Madison? I thought you're friends with her, right? Or I've heard some parents say, oh, it doesn't matter, just go read a book. You don't need friends, it's okay, it's all right. Right, just trying to solve the problem here. But you're missing the opportunity to connect when you do that. You're missing the right brain. So some good things to say, some things to connect during that time might be things like, that sounds really hard. It's just really easy, right? Okay. Or I'll be with you until you feel better. This could be when your child is crying and you don't know why they're crying, they can't talk. So you just say, it's okay, I'm just gonna sit here until you feel better. Is that good with you? Or I want to help you, just let me know how. And this has happened before. Like, my daughter has gone through some social issues at school, and I've asked her, I want to help you. Do you want me to talk to somebody in school, or do you want to handle this by yourself? Giving her the choice. And most of the time she says, I'm going to handle it by myself. And she does come out on the other hand and really doing it. And just as simple as, I care about you, your feelings matter to me. And sometimes if you really don't know what to say at all, the last sentence is the best. Can you tell me more? It's the easiest way out. How about, what if the mean thing, the comment, the trauma is directed at you? What if your child goes, Daddy, I hate you. You're the worst. What do you think would be a good thing to say during that time? A typical parent would be like, how can you say that to me? I work so hard, right? You know, what do you guys think? What would be a good thing to say if the comment is directed at you? Tell me more. Yes, that's a really good one. Exactly. That's exactly how you apply it. But if you're really triggered, then do the 90 seconds first. Yeah. Like, I did not like that comment. And you can even verbalize it. Wow, that was a really strong comment. Yeah, that comment is very strong. You must feel really angry right now. And just labeling what you see to the child. Wow, you're really angry at me right now. That doesn't make me feel really good too. Okay, I need a minute. And then come back and, can you tell me more? I care about you, right? So life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. This is what this is all about. So this is where I end. This is where I wrapped up. So thank you. If you guys have any questions, feel free right now. I have about 10 minutes of questions. Don't be shy. Yeah. And that's my QR code to my website if you want to learn more about what I do and some of my classes and my workshops. Yeah. Anybody, any show of hands? No questions?
I got one. Just going back to the 90-second practice. Is there really a difference between the identify and the label? Because when I think about it, I'm frustrated. I just identified frustration, but I feel like I sort of identified it and labeled it at the same time. So is there more distinction?
So identifying your emotion is also feeling your physical response. How does frustration feel to you in your body? Sometimes your body is the first sign of how you feel about something. So that's why in mindfulness, there's a meditation called body scan, where it helps people cultivate a higher self-awareness of what comes up in their body and what they're feeling. So when I work with kids, actually in my last class on Monday, we talked about when you're angry, what does it feel like in the body? Maybe clench fists. I know Miles clench his jaw. I can see it in his face, like, you know? Or I have furrowed brows. That's the signature of my dad. He walks into the room and he's like this. And I go up to him and I relax. I'm like, just relax your face. And the actual act of relaxing a certain body part will send signs and signals to your brain to actually relax and change the mood. So that's why identifying in the first step, if you can identify what is a physical response, then you can say, oh, okay, my fists are really clenched right now. Okay, just let go. That will help you process and pause in that moment. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay. You had a question?
So earlier when you were describing the like allowing your child to feel the feelings, and you gave the example of like you can feel angry, but you can't like throw things or something. To a kid, that distinction can feel a little arbitrary. So do you have any kind of thoughts around making it clear what's
what's
okay
allowed
and what's not okay, and why those things are the way they are, and it's not just random arbitrary parent saying things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is where we can teach them replacement behaviors. So for example, if your kid has cultivated a habit of, I'm angry, I'm going to throw something, that's something they have already forged in their minds, that path is there already in their brain. And we're going to try and shift that path somewhere else. And that's where after the angry episode, you can sit down with them and talk about, just now that thing made you really angry. What do you think we can do next time? And you can write down or even draw with them what are things we can do when we're angry. So with my daughter, we're still working on it. She's cultivated a habit of hitting her brother. It's quite severe. So, yeah. So we're working on the replacement behavior, and it's just a constant conversation of, okay, next time, and you can preempt it. Like, that's going to happen soon. I literally have to pull them apart. That's going to happen soon. Pull them apart, and I bring her aside, like, I can see you're getting really angry. What are the things that we spoke about? That's why the child-led bonding time is so important, because you recognize their facial expressions, their emotions, their body language, and you can see what's going to come up. When you know your child really well, you can preempt a lot of things. Yeah, so discuss with your child afterwards what is okay and what isn't, and then practice that. Yeah, and some calming tools, perhaps like breathing. My daughter hates breathing. She hates it. She's like all anti-mindfulness for some reason, because mommy teaches it. She's just like, oh, it's this again. So yeah. So now she says scribbling. So our list was, she doesn't like breathing, so she said jumping. Okay, that might help, right? Because some kids are really active, not restless, active. So jumping. She said hugging mommy, hugging daddy. But I said, what if we're not there? Scribbling. So I said, okay, bring a notepad with you and a pen for any scribbles, because she loves doodling. And for if we're really not there, then maybe go into the bathroom and scream into some water, wash her face, something like that. So there are lots of ways. Just be creative. Be creative with what's okay and what isn't. Yeah, but hurting someone is absolutely not okay. So we're still going through that. Thank God Forrest is very resilient. He's taken a lot of hitting. So, any other questions?
Good question. So, if you have a child that's a perfectionist, and as a parent you try to do what the tips that you give, be present with the child and listen to them, and it still fails because the child is so ingrained in their sort of mindset. And I think part of it is maybe they impose a lot of expectation on themselves.
Yeah.
What's the best way to handle situations like that? Where externally you try your best, but internally they have their own strong will.
Yeah. I understand you, because my daughter is a perfectionist as well. So she struggles a lot with, this also goes hand in hand with the rigidity. So she has very high, it sounds like your child has very high expectations for themselves, right? And honestly, this just goes to the core of her feeling supported by you. She knows that you have her back all the time. Is it a daughter? Yeah. And that no matter what the outcome is, you're not going to judge her. Right? So she will learn that from you. And also talking a lot about mistakes and failures yourself. So in her current school, she was given 2 days to study 100 Chinese characters in grade 2. That's why we're switching to Dalton. Yeah. And she was really trying her very best. Seriously, I was working. She was sitting beside me for 2 hours. The first evening, she practiced about 15 to 20 characters and repeatedly wrote 10 times each character. And not only that character, she had to know the combination of the other character, so the 詞語. And so I saw her, and she basically wrote like 200 characters in an hour, 2 hours. And she was like, my hand is so tired, and it was already 8:30, and I said, please just go to bed, it's okay. Next morning, we get into the car, take out her notebook and doing the same characters, like more characters, practicing. I didn't even say anything. And it's her own drive. But I just told her, exactly, I told her, you're putting so much effort into this, and I'm so proud of you. You work very hard, giving her that recognition, right? I'm here to support you. Show up and do the work, but whatever happens, it's okay. I'm here for you, and mommy isn't going to be upset. And I said that to her. I said, have I ever been upset if you don't get perfect grades? She said, no. So I said, so if you're not going to get a perfect grade this time, are you going to feel okay? And she's like, okay, okay. And then I told her, I said, I actually failed the bar exam the first time. It's not the end of the world. And then telling her stories. Another great tool is storytelling. Kids love stories. They love hearing about parents and how you were crazy and silly before you became a serious mom and a serious dad, full of rules. Yeah, so tell them stories about your failures and mistakes, and that actually you learn so much from them. Things have gone better because there are some books, I didn't bring it today, but all the parents over there, I brought a series of books that I highly recommend, so feel free after the talk just to go over there and take some pictures. There are some books about really amazing people who failed many times. And I tell those stories to the kids, like Dyson vacuum. I think there were 3,000 prototypes before the real one came out. So just repeating those stories, I think, will help. And it's a process. She will change. Yeah, it's not just, and I thought it was permanent too, but actually I'm seeing improvement. Yeah.
I think part of it is her self-awareness as well. So, I mean, I'm not saying this happens with Dalton, but so say, for example, in your daughter's situation, she goes to school and then does this test, and she only gets 99 out of 100 or something like that, and then the teacher gives her a big red mark because she got one wrong.
Yeah.
That to her must be like, oh my God, it's devastating.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of self-awareness which I'm trying to see where it's happening and then trying to find ways to just kind of comfort her.
Yeah. Just
It's
keep,
on her as on herself.
yeah, and just keep doing what you're doing, because it sounds like you're a very supportive and loving, nurturing parent, and that can never go wrong. Yeah, because yes, there is always going to be judgment and comparison, and you cannot shield all of that. So that's what I'm saying today. It's not about shielding your kids from stress. I was just talking to another parent the other day, and I said to her, which she actually found this analogy very helpful. Imagine the path for your kid is climbing up a mountain, right? That's why I had the picture of the hikers on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs just now. So imagine these are your kids. And they want to reach the top. You want them to reach the top too. But your role actually is the hiking stick. Imagine yourself as the hiking stick to give them an aid to walk up the mountain until their muscles are strong enough to walk on their own without sticks anymore. That's what you are. right? So if she comes home and she's probably showing this to you because she feels very safe with you. So she's showing you her most vulnerable side. She's probably not showing that outside, and maybe in school or in class. And in that moment, that's where you take out the walking stick and you tell her it's okay. You may feel, and you can tell her, maybe you were a perfectionist or somebody else you know is like that. And tell her how you manage it yourself. Yeah, and tell her that that's okay to have this characteristic. Maybe you're a little bit more worried, but it's not gonna be the end of the world. And you're there to share that with her. Yeah. Does that help? Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.